So, you've bought the Mini Educator. First things first, let's get it out of the box. First thing, from underneath here, find your instructions. Then, we're going to remove the charger. Plug it in. On the training collar, you're going to have a port, has a little rubber flap, a plug on it. You're going to want to plug your charger in there, pretty reminiscent of your cell phone. Plug on the back of the transmitter, and you plug it in. They're both going to turn red. Within 2 hours, they're both going to turn green, and we're going to be ready. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to turn on the receiver, the collar. On your transmitter, you're going to find a red dot. You're going to touch it into this red dot until you see this collar wake up. There's your green. It's going to blink green once every 4 seconds. Later, when you see this start to turn amber or red during the blink, you need to recharge. Now we're going to turn on the transmitter. On the back, you're going to have on and off with the word light. I'm going to press it until we see this turn on. It'll blink, you'll see it flash through it, it says on. So now we have them both on. First thing we're going to do is make sure that it works. We're going to press the tone button, which is out of the factory, set to vibrate. All right, there we go. We know we're turned on. Next thing I'm going to do is find my light out of the box here, and what it is it's a little test light. And then we're going to see what our features do. So I install this on here, saves me a little discomfort. And I'm going to start by turning the power wheel all the way up to 100, which it'll say high. And I'm going to look at this as I tap my black stem button here. That's all that it's going to do, even if I press and hold out of the box. The red stem button, as long as I press and hold it, we're going to see the amount of static that's coming through here. If I turn it down, you'll see a lot less, maybe nothing at all there. So right out of the box, I would recommend get this thing out, run your power up and down, and get a feel for what your buttons do.
All right, folks, I'm Josh here at Landtime. Welcome back. We're going to continue talking about the Mini Educator e-collar setup and how we use it here at Landtime, but also what's it going to look like when you bring it out of the box if we didn't set it up for you. You're going to turn on your transmitter and you're going to see something similar to this. Okay. Over here is your tone T button, which is set to vibrate factory out of the box. Kip talked about this. Here is in this setting, this button is our momentary button. This red button would be our continuous button. Momentary and continuous mode are indicated on the screen by the M and the C here. The 7 in the middle would indicate our current power level. The 1D at the top would indicate you're on a 1-dog collar system and you're on the 1-dog collar. It's flashing, indicated by my little parentheses here, or my marks here on either side. This is flashing to indicate that it is not locked. In other words, if it's not locked, when I turn my dial here at the top, my power can roll up and down. I'm finding my working level at 7, and I want to lock that working level in. So when I get the dial right, then I'm going to push the dial button in. This dial button has 2 features. I lock it and unlock it by pushing it down until the 1D stops flashing. When the 1D stops flashing, it would be locked at 7. I have a solid 1D, a level 7 here, meaning that my momentary button would be at power level 7, as well as my continuous button would be at power level 7. So as long as I hold down the red button here, the continuous button, I'm going to have power until the collar times out at about 12 seconds. Then I would have to release and apply pressure again. My momentary button, I'm just going to get a momentary stimulation, or a NIC, as other e-collar manufacturers call this, a NIC. but at the level 7. The setup that we use here for most pet dogs at land time would be in the constant mode. And when I go to just the constant mode, my screen is going to look like this. The M is gone. Both of these buttons are continuous. I no longer have a momentary feature. So let me kind of take care of that. And we'll talk about what this does now. So now, the top button, instead of momentary, is constant or continuous. My bottom or red button, and this is why it's red, is a boost. Both buttons are now in continuous mode, meaning that as long as I push them down for up to 12 seconds, they will both be on the whole time. What happens here, out of the box, the default boost setting, if I'm in this configuration, would be 5 levels higher than my working level that's on the screen. So if I hit the red button at constant, this number, you're going to see it jump to 12 instead of 7. Typically, we set these up, we change this boost to about 10 levels higher, but it can be set anywhere from 1 level higher to 60 levels higher on the Mini Educator, depending on what circumstances I'm going to use the collar on. This allows me to use my working level while teaching place or come or other obedience, layering my e-collar over other obedience commands such as sit or down. But if my dog begins to misbehave, doesn't hold position, I recall the dog, he runs the other direction, I can jump to the boost. Typically we would tap that, and I can kind of correct the dog rather than be at that working level. So I'm at a higher stimulation level. When we tap this in this continuous function, we haven't lost all functionality of the momentary. We now would refer to this as a bump in e-collar nomenclature. A manual tap of the button would be called a bump. So I now still have my momentary feature with a manual tap. I have my constant working level feature, and I would have my boost. So I've got a little more functionality out of the collar in this setting. Last but not least, back to the functionality of your transmitter on your Mini Educator e-collar. The back side of the collar, this large button in the middle has an L in the middle of it. The L is for light. I've got my collar on, my transmitter's on. If I tap the L button one time, I get that strobing light. You can see the light flashes. If I tap it a second time, I have a constant on. Very nice feature if my dog's outside going potty in the night in the backyard and I don't see the dog. So it turns it on and off, and it also controls the light on the receiver. Next to this large button is a much smaller button, and it has a small M and a slash and a C in it. This is the button that controls my momentary and constant modes and how I flip back and forth between those, or the combination of the two. And at the bottom you can see the charging port.
Hey guys, back at Landheim, I'm Kip, got Josh on the camera now. So, we know how to turn our collar on and off and what the features do. So now we need to think about putting it on our dog. And one of the first things you're going to realize is that if the contacts that you're wearing don't touch the skin on your dog, the collar doesn't work. And so there's this juggling act of how tight are we going to make it and where are we going to put it. There is one place, the 6 o'clock position, that's no, never. We just don't do that. Set this thing over a muscle group, usually works best, often back by the ears. It's going to have to be firm enough, tight enough that it doesn't wander around. Therefore, to get this perfect, you're going to want to have the right contacts. The contacts that come out of the factory, not very many dogs here use them. They don't work that great. Hopefully you're a lucky one and they're working fine for you. The vast majority, 80-90% of our long-haired dogs are going to wear these Extreme Ultra wings. They're very comfortable for the dog, and they're going to allow you to run the collar loose enough that you're comfortable with this too. We have to be able to get 2 fingers underneath this. If you have a really short-haired dog, Dobermans, this type of thing, Bostons, we're going to use Comfort Pad and get good contact with that and be really comfortable. When you first start using your collar, heads up. Rarely, but I have seen dogs that are allergic. Watch your dog, make sure it doesn't look sweaty after he wears it. When you read your manual, it told you the collar can never be worn more than 12 hours. We're way more conservative than that. We're gonna say in about 3 hours or less, you're gonna loosen and move your collar constantly. We have to watch out for pressure necrosis. We don't wanna get bed sores. So, if your collar's moving around a lot, not gonna work. High percentage of the people here will use this. It's stretchy. It allows you to put the collar on firmly, but it's not too tight, and we're all comfortable, the dog's comfortable, and so are we. So one of the frequently asked questions, when do I wear my electronic collar? All the time? Absolutely not. We don't do it in the crate, never when the dog's unattended. But if there's any chance there's gonna be a learning moment, some training, it has to be on, charged, properly set, and have an operator that knows how to use it. The controller in the kitchen when you're in the living room does you no good. So in the beginning, you're gonna be using this thing a lot. There's basically 3 threes. A lot of people that have a naughty dog the first 3 days, for aversives, it's gonna be used frequently, keeping the dog off the counter, out of the trash, etc. For about 3 weeks, you're gonna use it a lot. There's gonna be some addiction, but now the rate is slowing down. By the end of your 3rd month, if you're using this for manners, you should be about done. When you reach the point that you've been 30 days, that you never had to correct the dog, you don't have to have it on quite so religiously anymore. That's a good judge there, all right? A couple things that we wanna talk about that's really easy to get wrong. That's every time when I remove the collar and I've taken it off my dog, remember to turn off your controller, turn off the collar. If they need charged, get them charged. This is a frequent thing that people early in the use forget to do, and you pick up the collar and it's dead. Vice versa, when you install this on the collar, on the dog, you get it adjusted. Remember to turn it on. Find the working level. We're gonna talk about that in a moment. There's a necklace in the box. Pretty handy feature. Again, we have to keep this with us. Simple things about the use that are pretty much non-negotiable here. Don't negotiate with your little furry terrorist. Don't take this and say, Rover, I don't want to shock you, but I will. Don't do that. Keep it hidden. Don't go crazy about keeping it hidden. Keep it as hidden as you possibly can. Resist the urge of threatening with the collar. The same thing. These things are like the hand of God. They're secret to the dog. They're magic. So don't fall into that trap. When we find our working level, till you're good at it, you're gonna have to find your working level. The working level is pretty much the smallest amount that your dog can feel and you see a reaction to. So when we get this out and you have good contact, a lot of these dogs in between 3 and 5 are gonna look around, you'll see an ear wiggle. That's where you start working. You just cannot put this on and go, the trainer had it on 10. I think that's where I'll start. You have to get good at that. The titration level to your correction will go up and down. There's 100 levels here for a reason. Most dogs are going to use them all at some point in their life. What stops pulling on the sidewalk doesn't stop pulling when the herd of squirrels is out in front of you. So don't get caught up on the A number is the number.